in the four performers, you will have Joan Sullivan with I Am Tree, Catherine Parceau with Dear House, Judy Parceau with I Am the Picture I'm Playing, and please put your hands together for Lisa Wagner with Coming Home, the Green Thread.
We are truly in a special place in the world. St. Lawrence is nearby. The cliffs and mountains of Parc du Bic are close, with its beaches, rocky coast, kelp, sand, and seals. This migrating shorebirds, hawks, and hummingbirds mark the change of the seasons, as does the emerging green leaves this time of year. When we came back this last week from North Carolina, coming north, we came back to early spring. Serviceberries, twin flowers, wild strawberries, and forget-me-not are in flower out now. In North Carolina, serviceberries are ripe and being collected probably as we speak. Mom would have loved it here, but she's been gone for a long time now and never knew the trajectory of much of my path in the world. She might have wondered how we came here, far from where we have lived for decades. The simple answer is that the mountains and the river brought us here. We're botanists, plant ecologists in particular. We recognize special places, and this was one for us. Our path north here, a decade ago, brought us from the Southern Appalachians in Western North Carolina to the Gaspé, our first destination, where the Northern Appalachians dip into the sea. The vegetation here is like the high elevations of our Southern Appalachians: spruce, fir, mountain ash, ferns, mosses, and rock. It's wonderful. We love it. Our first visit to Parc du Bic was on that trip. We hiked Le Chemin du Nord, enchanted by the bays, forests, and singular views like this one. The summer houses in the park echoed the past. This is the view from the Lyman House, used as a tea house by the park for many years. Janet's family home, many of you know this path, is one of my favorites, with its soft green shutters and interpretive glimpses into the past. I like dropping by occasionally on walks in the summer and fall. Little did we imagine then that we would end up living here more than half the year in a renovated parish schoolhouse. It's close, really 5 minutes away, directly across from the midpoint of the park. Mom would have loved it. She loved the outdoors, hiking and camping, and encouraged my love of nature and interest in the natural world. My youthful enthusiasms included bird watching, vegetable gardening, berry picking, and collecting bark fragments and stones, as well as doing art, painting watercolors of wildflowers and birds. She gave me pressed flower art from Switzerland for my 14th and 15th birthdays. This is one of them. One had Edelweiss, both have alpine wildflowers. They're still fairly vivid after many, many decades. My mother probably would have imagined that I would describe myself now as someone who's had a green thread run throughout my life. 5 decades of teaching, writing, and speaking about nature and gardening. Someone actually asked me in the park yesterday, I was dressed fairly similarly, do you work here? When I walk in the park, I often remember early family camping trips and the exhilaration and hiking and being in the woods. Now in my 8th decade, I remember that young girl who loved nature and had a passion for it. She's never left me. Mm-hmm. The smell of wood smoke when I walk near one of the campgrounds in the park always triggers good memories, memories of those family camping trips. I do wish I could read the stories and the rocks along the St. Lawrence where they protrude from the sea. They are folded with stripes and striations, colors varied. And I don't know, I know they tell a story. I'll go back to the view. They tell a story if only I could understand it, but I didn't ever study geology. The rocks speak a language that I don't understand, but I recognize is a language with meaning in the patterns, shapes, and colors. I understand the language of plants and trees and shrubs, and it's mountains, rivers, and forests that speak to me. I wrote a piece called Coming Home for Font magazine several years ago. Rachel was the editor of that magazine, and some of you have participated in that magazine. It was a reflection after returning from a pandemic year and a half away. My sister, not prone to praise, said, well, Mom would have loved reading it, appreciating the writing. That touched me. Mom was a wonderful writer, as is my sister, too. Let me share a bit of that piece now. I don't remember when I didn't connect with earth and sky and words, but I do remember the world emerging as I learned about the heart of things. It wasn't just about their names. It was about their place in the world and how they fit. The red bird became a cardinal who fed on seeds and sang loudly in the spring. The green flower distinguished itself as oak, pine, and spruce. As I learned about the world that surrounded me in the Edwards Plateau, where I grew up in central Texas, the stories included words for limestone, scrub oak, and juniper. I remember trips to the Rockies discovering wildflowers and aspens. I started thinking about sense of place a decade or more ago, with even longer, with clear memories about what kinds of places spoke to me and where I felt most at home. They weren't high deserts, tropical beaches, or Mediterranean hillsides. All of those are beautiful, though. It was spruce fir and deciduous forests, rocky coasts and expansive skies, flowing waters and lakes with mirrored images of surrounding hills. I see these special places as I remember them. When I'm at home, either here or in North Carolina, being surrounded by green always brings me back to myself. The strong limbs of trees covered in lichen and foraged by a woodpecker, moving methodically up and down a branch. Two squirrels chasing each other around the trunk of the slanted oak. Perfect. Waking up to the rich smell of coffee and eating homemade toast and fruit on a rosy tinged morning sets the start to being at home another day. Here in Quebec, we look out to a slope from one part of our living room to a slope that's part of the park, punctuated by aspen and spruce, sometimes striped by mist. Another look out the living room window, I'm wrapped in soothing hues of green and the contrasting white bark of aspen and birch. When I first walked in the park after our return post-pandemic, we crossed the border on the first day. It was open again. The richness and complexity of greens was shining in the needles of pine trees, the buds on the fir trees, and the mosses underfoot. Early morning sun drove reflections from the droplets of dew, which had coalesced overnight. The greens enveloped me then as I walked, soothing my spirit, welcoming me home. The green thread that's pulled me forward from childhood to career and work through midlife and beyond keeps me connected to the earth. Some of my ancestors must have been gardeners and farmers, but most of them were shopkeepers and teachers, as far as I know, My parents weren't naturalists or gardeners at all, but they did love the outdoors. It was a gift to return to the Northern Appalachians here in Quebec after that long, unexpected pandemic absence. The mountains, the St. Lawrence River, and the expansive skies welcomed us home. One morning last summer, it was unusually still, mist stretching over the bays. The holiday makers don't normally arrive at the park until close to 10. So if I'm there earlier, as I was that day, the quiet, sheer magic of the place surrounds me. Ripening rose hips were turning red and becoming soft. At home, we picked the last of the raspberries with apples and pears to come. A bit of morning coolness hinted of fall. Wheat ready to harvest. It was tawny on the upper fields and the upper rangs, contrasting with the green of alfalfa and buckwheat, scattered hay bales, picturesque near old barns. I'm thankful that the mountains and the rivers brought us here.